This is an initial impressions review of the Team Associated B5M Factory Lite. I took this out for its first race this past weekend, and I was pretty much rushing to get used to the car and how it drives, and try to find just a driving style for it that works. Because in the past I had been running my B5 rear motor car, and that has a lot more weight towards the rear, so the driving characteristics are very different. So I'm still, in the process of getting used to this car, but I can say initially that it does drive very differently from the B5 rear motor. In particular, it has quite a lot more turn-in, and that would naturally have to do with more of the weight being shifted towards the front of the car, especially with the motor being in front of the rear axles. So with the rear motor car, I've been getting used to the technique of turning the car in long before it gets to the corner, so that by the time the car is at the corner, the front wheels are gripping and I get some kind of turn and I can actually negotiate the turn. If you do that with the mid-motor car, you're going to hit the pipe. So you have to adjust your brain basically to turn in a little bit later, and kind of stay on the throttle. You don't really need to use brakes on this car. If you do, it's more prone to spinning out, again, because more of the weight's toward the front. There's not as much weight over the rear tires. It still generates reasonable rear grip, but especially when the track is slippery. For example, in the first qualifying round that I ran this past weekend, I was early in the round after the track had been watered, so the surface was less grippy than, say, 1 or 2 races later as that water dries out and the grip level comes up. And of course, when the track was a little slicker, the car felt very loose. It was very hard to maintain control. With the rear motor car, it probably still would have felt loose, but not quite as bad. And then in the second round, when I was qualifying later in that round, after the water had dried off and the track was drier and higher grip, I found the car to be much more manageable to drive. But I think I may have the wrong ride height. I was setting it at the stock ride height, which I think is 24 millimeters, but it felt maybe a little bit too high. Especially around certain corners, I felt like I might have traction. I could have traction rolled if I pushed the car a little harder, but I needed to push the car harder to be able to keep up with everyone else. So maybe drop the ride height a little bit, and I'll try it again the next time I go racing. But so far, it's not bad. I do need to adjust my driving style to this, and it does feel different. I guess there's not a whole lot more I can say about that. The jumping performance feels fine. It feels neutral. I will grant you that the track I was running on only has a few jumps in its current layout, so I didn't really have an opportunity to see how the car jumps over different kinds of jumps. But from what I understand, it's supposed to be more neutral. It's supposed to be more level in the air over a wider variety of jumps than with the rear motor car. I can see how that would make sense, because if in a rear motor car with more weight in the back, on certain types of jump faces, the rear end can squat down too much, bottom out, hit the jump face, and cause the nose to dive as the car's in the air. I don't remember having that kind of a problem with my B5 rear motor. Generally, I found jumps to be perfectly negotiable with the rear motor B5. So it's not entirely clear to me that the mid-motor buys you a genuine advantage, at least at the club racing level. But I still want to play around with it. I just started running my rear motor in the mod class, and that's a lot of fun. I can keep up with the mid-motor cars just as easily. So, mid versus rear, at least for the tracks I drive on, there's not really much, if any, of a difference. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about this. I only have a very small amount of track time, and I had some electronics problems during the A main, so I couldn't even finish the race. I'm not sure what happened. I think the speed control was cutting out or something, but I had to pull off the track, if I remember correctly. So We'll see what happens next time. Yeah, so I guess that's all I have to say. Interesting, it's very different, a lot more turn-in. That's the most notable difference, and maybe a little less rear grip on corner exit, but if you have high enough traction on the track, it's not a problem. And you just have to get used to that. You have to get used to basically coasting around turns. You don't really need to use brakes as much as with the rear motor. With the rear motor, you use brakes to rotate the car. Here, you just kind of lift off the throttle and, you know, zip around the turn like it's on rails. So it's a very different driving style, and I look forward to getting to, you know, learn more about it and adapt to it. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.